Hello, I'm Colin Hobson. I'm CEO of Spatial, and it's my pleasure to present to you a solution that we have that works on BricsCAD, and that is to really solve a problem that I've been involved in for probably more than 20 years, and that's going from analog or paper to digital. And the context for Spatial specifically is looking at as constructed documentation and moving that all the way through into full-blown GIS and GeoBIM models these days. What I'd like to do is just take a look at the workflow, and what we're focused on is the transition of data between design and as-built documentation and how we get that information into GIS systems. So it's this little part of the workflow right there. And what we're doing really is we're front loading so that the CAD person can add the attributes in such a way within the CAD drawings that that can get consumed and validated within GIS. And that produces huge efficiencies, and I'll show you that. And within that context, we've produced a plugin that's available on BricsCAD called Attributor. An Attributor is one part of an entire solution, but it's an absolutely essential part. And what Attributor is it literally adds the capability on attributed blocks, which is where we store the data that we're going to transfer between the different systems here. It'll allow you to go from a normal block insert dialog like this one with attributes on the block. And what Attributor does, if you see on the right-hand side, is it adds drop-downs, and it allows you to configure what are valid values within those drop-downs. So this is, in our context, it's infrastructure. It could be buildings, it could be anything, and you can go in and literally configure in a simple text file what gets produced within Attributor. Of course, Attributor is just part of a larger solution that we have called ACDC, which is really an acronym for As Constructed Design Certification. We have, in the last 5 years, moved that into the web, so now we have it as a web portal. And that allows you to literally take a CAD drawing and upload that into the cloud and have it validated. Of course, the data in the CAD drawing would need to have been added to attributed blocks in large part on specific layers. So what we've done is, if you look at the typical process from design through plan check, through construction, the gray area in the middle, to data capture, that process, the data capture and management part of it, is the beginning of years and years, 80, 100 or more years of management of those assets. And so what we want to do is remove the PDF transfer of information between digital from the design into the data storage. And so we do that with this solution. So what we've done is literally, in a quick overview, to be able to go from CAD to GeoBIM models within a matter of minutes. And so Attribute is a key part of that. If we look at the process, so here's just a cameo which says from design or construction. At construction phase, it's important to include the attributes. And there's many ways of adding attributes within CAD drawings. You could have text, you could have leader lines, but you can also have attributed blocks, and that's in large part what we use. And so with Attributor, we add the ability to take the attributes within those blocks, and then we downstream that all the way in terms of validation. And that is huge in terms of the transfer of this information. So Attributor for BricsCAD, it's a plugin, it's available and can be used, and you can configure it for your own values on any kind of attribute. In our case, we've produced off-the-shelf data models for GeoBIM and infrastructure, so anything from your wet utilities or outside linear assets. In this case, here's a new development. You can draw that drawing with Attributor plus regular layers and CAD entities and attributed blocks, but you can submit that in the cloud in our ACDC solution to the ACDC portal, and that allows you to validate it. And what we're doing there is checking, did you fill in depth? Did you add number of turns? Have we got the direction of turns? Is it above ground, below ground? These would all be typical attributes, and in this workflow would need to be captured at the end of the day. So what we're doing is putting that at the beginning of the cycle, which makes sense because that is survey accurate sufficient for construction data, and so it should really downstream from there, rather than the old paper thing where you get PDFs and then somebody has to go and either resurvey or recapture that data. So within the portal, you can do validation, and here you can see a dashboard, and in the dashboard you'll see a number of drawings, and literally it takes a matter of seconds or minutes to validate a drawing. If it's validated, we can add workflows because it's in the cloud. We can let people know this project submittals are ready, etc. We can also then automatically output the GeoBIM data. Here I'm showing that same data going from construction to GIS, and that's literally in a matter of like 4 minutes. And that's exactly what we want to do. Typically, that would take a matter of days, if not more, to capture that information, and you would have no confidence that the information was accurate or correct because it might have had to have been recaptured. These days, we can also take that information and push it straight into a digital twin or GeoBIM model. And so here you're actually seeing the construction data, the CAD data from the plans digitally, and they contain all the attributes that go with it. So that's the overview. So let's take a look at why we would want to do this. In summary, we can enable organizations to become digital, to go with a full digital submission to capture. It absolutely speeds up the process, as I mentioned, a matter of minutes compared to days or more. It also produces good data that's been validated. You can specify with Attributor, you can specify that a column is mandatory, and then that will be validated. So if it's the depth of an asset, then that would be a mandatory value, or diameter or material, etc. We can also completely automate that consumption. So we reduce the backlogs. A lot of organizations will have PDF files or digital versions of PDF, which really doesn't have the real data in an accessible fashion in some sort of asset management or ERP system. That data can take anywhere between months to years to get put into the system. It absolutely improves data quality because we're capturing it right at creation phase, during construction, even inspections of those construction, during construction can check that the plans match and the values within the plans match, and because we're then digitally taking that in, it goes straight into the system. It absolutely is a huge reduction in cost, and that cost saving is at every single project that gets done within an organization. Let's take a look at a product demonstration and look at how Attributor can be used within that workflow. Let's take a look at Attributor in use on BricsCAD. When you install Attributor, you will get a sample menu at the top and two commands: insert a block and edit a block with Attributor. You'll also see on your add-ins that you've got these two commands available, and so you can go in and add blocks using those commands that are essentially an extended version of the regular insert command. So if I inserted a block and just go and choose a name here, I need to know the name of the block, and this is just a regular attributed block, so you could choose it, say OK, and when you put the block in, you'll get a dialog that you're used to. These are the attributes already predefined in the dialog, and you'd be able to go in and type anything, any value on any given attribute. And the problem with this is when they say number of turns or direction to open, does that mean left or right or L or R? What is going to be needed when it comes to the end of the story at the GIS or asset management side? So you can insert the block, use that command, or you could use Attributor and type the OS block insert command, and now it'll just ask you for the name of the block, same as what we did before. And now you can go in and specify the usual values, but when Attributor opens, you will now get a full enumeration, and it will show you which attributes are mandatory, which ones have values, and then the drop downs for left or right, for example. And so this really makes a huge difference for somebody who needs to enter information. They know what to enter, They've got help here to give it to them. And so that makes a world of difference. And if you don't fill in everything that Attributor is requiring, it will prompt you to say that these are the fields that are mandatory. You can come back later and use those and go with that. And at this point, I can do the inserts, etc. With the scaling, we'll just keep it as 1 and keep the angle there, etc. And so you can see now I've got 2 of those blocks, one inserted regular, and they're just blocks. If I click on it and I go and look at properties, you'll see that here are the properties of those blocks. And just the same as you can go in and edit properties here for multiple blocks, you're going to get a similar thing in Attributor. So if I select those, you can see here I've got 2 blocks. These are the values. In Attributor, if I go in and edit with Attributor, it will say select the entities. I can select them, and now it's going to pop up which ones do you want, and it'll give me that information, and I can go in and fill that out. Or if I had more than one, I could go in and do a edit multiple on those blocks. So that's really how Attributor works, and that allows you then within any given drawing, say like this one, for all of these blocks. If you go in here, you'll see there's a water meter. It has no attributes. And so you can look at pipes, blocks. With Attributor and AC/DC, we put an attributed block on the midpoint of a line. And then when you run validation, we take those attributes and apply them to the line. And that's how we get GIS data on linear features and polygon features. Same for these parcels. The other thing with Attributor is you can use that command off of a menu. And you'll notice for AC/DC, we have off-the-shelf menus for a number of utilities. So for example, the civil menu is already here. And the reason for doing this is because in the menu, we can also code the layer that asset needs to go on. And by doing that, it means somebody does not have to learn all of the layers in a given standard. And this is in the AC/DC solution. By providing these menus, somebody doesn't have to learn that this particular node for a clean out or a fire service connection has to be on this layer with this name and has to be a block of that of that specific name, and then has to have those attributes. So by combining a template that has layers, menus, and blocks, put those in the search path and include in Attributor the configuration files that determine what the drop downs are, users can go in and very quickly create drawings like this, which we can put straight into the AC/DC portal and validate that they've filled in all that info. So if you look, we've got a whole lot of different attributes for things like electrical, telecom, stormwater, and those menus there, fuel oil and fuel systems, natural gas. So with the AC/DC solution and a template like this, you can very quickly move forward and capture data. And that's the whole point of this exercise. So what you want to do then is save this drawing and simply upload it to the portal. You can simply go into the asconstructed.com website and go to the portal and log in and drag and drop your drawings into the AC/DC solution. This has a dashboard. You can have projects, documents that go with it. I won't go into all the detail of that, but if you go into validations, here's drawings that have passed and or failed. You can see they've been uploaded and run through validations, and then you can simply download that or get GIS data. And so once you've done that, you can actually just go straight into what you would see in the GIS. So let's take that file that we were working on, and here's that data in GIS from the CAD drawing, and I've skipped a whole lot of information that's been validated and checked. But in essence, if we go in here and let's go in and say, let's go to say a water node, and we click on the water nodes here, you'll see that they have attributes on them that have come from the CAD drawing. And so this drawing here within a matter of minutes has gone from CAD to GIS and GeoBIM. And that really is the value of this solution. And if we take a look then, what I've shown you then is with Attributor for BricsCAD, you can go from this to this, and that is a fundamental building block for the next workflow, which is to get to GIS. Just the last thing about Attributor, you can configure your own drop-down files. There's two simple text files, and they have a couple of components, and I won't go into all the details, but there's a list of blocks, so there would be the valid blocks that are going to be checked. And then within that block, the attributes of the block, and they have zeros and ones there, which say whether they are mandatory or not. And they also have the text for LU, which would then give us that text would be the lookup table for water usage. And that's how we get those drop downs. So you could make your own. You could put in, window frames, you could put in anything and have the blocks, the attributes, and the drop downs defined for yourself, and that then would pop up in the dialog. So with that dialog, that definition, you would see these drop downs appear for public, domestic, commercial, fire, or unknown, and we would match those attributes to what's needed in the GIS, and the AC/DC solution provides all the tools for that. So Attributor is one piece of that whole solution. But the solution then with Attributor allows you to go from that kind of drawing to that kind of GIS, GeoBIM data, and we can even push it straight into digital twins. Thank you for taking a look at the demo. I hope you enjoyed that. If you'd like further information, go to asconstructed.com, or you can scan the QR code and get Attributor for BricsCAD, which you can download and try from our website. Thank you very much, and wishing everybody all the best.